to respond to some of the issues raised by the Senate President, Senator Bukola Saraki. At the press conference he addressed the day before yesterday. It is important that we respond to some of the issues he canvassed so that the public is not misled into turning villains to heroes and twisting the facts that are really no secret to the Nigerian public. But it's important that we help the public to refresh their memories and arrive at their own individual judgment. First, the Senate President raised the issue of the fact that he has always acted not on the basis of his own personal interest, but he has always acted on the basis of the national interest. The truth is, it is doubtful if the Senate President has ever acted either in the national interest nor in the interest of his own political party before his defection recently. Without going back to ancient history, it suffices to start by looking at how, in the first instance, Senator Bukola Saraki became the president of the Senate. He decided, clearly against the party position, to enter into a deal with the opposition PDP and got a faction of the PDP and taking advantage of the provisions in the Constitution to side with him, while majority of the APC senators were having a meeting at the International Conference Center in order to resolve the issue of leadership of the Senate and other principal officers of the Senate that are expected to be produced by the ruling party with majority senators in the Senate. Because he had put his personal interest over and above the interest of the party, he went into alliance with PDP and conceded the position of Deputy Senate President to the opposition in order to obtain the support of the opposition for his, Senator Saraki, to become the President of the Senate. And so for the first time in our democratic history in Nigeria, we have a situation in which, whereas the APC had majority in the Senate, it however went on to elect, the Senate went on to elect a PDP person as Deputy Senate President. This action alone portrays Senator Saraki for who he is. His interest comes, his personal interest comes before any other interest, including national interest and including the interest of his political party. Having went into this unholy alliance with opposition and mortgage the right of the ruling party, he proceeded to appoint opposition senators to head strategic committees whose activities can affect either for good or for bad the workings of the government and the relationship between the government and the legislature. By trading away sensitive and strategic committees to opposition. Senator Saraki did that in order to continue to protect himself against the wish of his party as Senate president. Again, that shows that the only thing that was ever constant in the minds of Senator Bukola Saraki was how to cling on to power, even if it means at the expense of his own party or even of the country. And I will speak to that. Even the media have repeatedly, in editorials, in columns, draw attention to the way in which the Senate, under Senator Bukola Saraki, has managed the Senate in a way that issues have been raised about whose interest the legislature was serving. For references, look at various columnists and various editorials and commentaries on electronic media over the past 3.5 years of Senator Saraki's leadership of the Senate. This year, you do not have to be a political activist or a partisan politician to appreciate that in an election year, every government around the world, every democratic government, we do everything possible to ensure that in an election year, it is seen to be working for the people of the country. So, like any other political party, the All Progressive government, the federal government under President Muhammadu Buhari, Nigerians expected that it will do everything possible this year to make up for lost time in terms of budget implementation and addressing critical infrastructure without which sustainable development is impossible. The Senate, under Senator Saraki, chose instead to delay the budget up to the end of the first half of the year to coincide with the period of the rainy season, such that those aspects of infrastructure, such as roads, for example, cannot really be constructed during rainy season. These were not errors of the head on the part of Senator Saraki's leadership. They were clearly designed to frustrate the capacity of President Buhari's government to address critical infrastructural deficit, without which the ordinary man on the street can't experience or feel the impact of governance. Again, I want to plead that I am not about to reveal anything. On receipt of the budget by Mr. President, after going through it, Mr. President cried out that the budget that was handed over to him by the National Assembly under the leadership of the Senate President was a clear distortion of the well-thought-out budget proposals that he had submitted to the National Assembly. Whereas Mr. President appreciates that the National Assembly could make some alterations on a budget, he did not expect that the budget would be completely rewritten and so grossly distorted as to make far more provisions for recurrent expenditure, such that there is very little left for capital projects, without which the Nigerian people cannot benefit from governance. And the president said this budget will be difficult. Putting it mildly, it will be difficult to implement. You've all heard of stories of budget padding or no budget padding. On this occasion, I would rather not delve into those. So when I say that the Senate President has never put Nigeria first, I support this statement by reference to the deliberate delay in the budget and the deliberate manipulation of provisions in the budget in a way that will compromise the commitment of the government to address critical infrastructure. It is by now not a secret that as Senate President, he conspired with others to try to create a sense of division, a perception of division within the ruling party, having failed to truncate the convention when they assembled a handful of people who were neither delegates nor contest for any of the offices at the convention to purport to have formed a political party. There is nothing for me to add to the legality of this action and the false foundation that Senate President Saraki tried to lay. I would rather adopt in toto the illuminating submission of Mr. Femi Falana, SAN. He has spoken extensively on the illegality of Senator Saraki's action, whether in terms of purporting that there is a faction in his own political party, as it then was the APC, or in basing his decision to encourage defection on the basis of his own imagined faction in his party that is unknown to law and is unknown to INEC. Again, those one do not portray him as someone who is concerned about sustaining democracy, because to sustain democracy also implies absolute commitment to the rule of law. And as he has seen, if the rule of law is compromised and Nigeria is reduced to banana republic, where it will be survival of the fittest, he is probably not the most strongest guy in town to cling on to that office. So each time he takes actions that constitute a breach of the Constitution and of the law, he is by his own action undermining the foundation and weakening the fabric of our democracy. However, upon his illegal defection, which he had to do hurriedly because the number of senators who he was playing on their fears that they will not be able to return to the Senate, and or that if they return, they will be headed to prison if President Muhammad Buhari is re-elected. And so he had at a point up to 36 senators who were on his list to defect. But consequent upon our election and our assumption of office, we took preemptive steps to reassure those senators. I'm sure many of you here are witnesses to the fact that you may not have witnessed the fact that the first meeting, and that was the day I was, after the convention, on Sunday the 24th of June, the first person we meet was Senator Bukola Saraki to try to listen to whatever his grievances are. And this I did in company of the Vice President. And at least on that occasion, he was fair when he was leaving. He acknowledged that those steps were taken to try to listen to what I call negotiable or verifiable grievances. But however, his real grievances are not negotiable, which is about ambition, which is about values, which is about fundamental conflict between his own value as a person and the values of the All Progressive Congress. However, when he defected, however illegal the action was, he went to Ilori to tell the people part of the truth. When he said, and the media, you are my witnesses because your newspaper reported it very generously, that among other things, he was leaving for two reasons. Number one, he alleged that President Muhammadu Buhari gave out over 200 juicy jobs without allocating some juicy jobs to him, and he chose to speak for the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Right Honorable Dogara, that even Dogara also was not given juicy positions. Again, I would have thought that not being a union leader, it is not for him to speak for the Speaker. The Speaker is well capable of speaking for himself. But that is aside. The key issue to note is that he lamented that he wasn't given a share of the so-called 200 juicy positions. I ask, giving Senator Bukola Saraki, Senate President, juicy position, does that coincide with the Nigeria public interest? Does that coincide with the interest of the people of Kwara State? Or to be more specific, of the interest of the people of Senator Bukola Saraki's senatorial zone? At no time did he refer to the interest of the people of his constituency or the interest of the people of Nigeria. The second reason he gave is that he will be persecuted. Again, even that is persecution, is alleged persecution of his person, not persecution of his people. So again, he never pretended that any of these actions have to do with the good people of Nigeria, but they have to do with his person. To the extent that he alleged personal persecution of his person, not of the Nigeria people, nor of Kwara State people, nor people of his constituency in Kwara State. But I think the governor of Kwara State, Alhaji Abdullahi Fatai, was more explicit in corroborating Senator Saraki's claims when he said that he, as a governor, and Senator Saraki, as Senate President, were being linked to armed robbery cases as part of their reason for defecting. Again, nothing to do with the Nigeria project, nothing to do with the Kwara State people. However, what is the truth? Who linked Senate President Senator Bukola Saraki to armed robbery? Was it the federal government or arrested armed robbers? It is armed robbers who were arrested who allege that the weapon with which they carried out their heinous crime, including the killings of about 35 people of Kwara State, somewhere in Ofa, that those weapons were procured for them by the Senate President. They made this allegation according to police report, which have been published everywhere, so it is not secret, to be declassified. He has not denied knowledge of these people, since some of them were captured in camera in his convoy or in his entourage when he went, ironically, to pay condolence visit to the survivors of those people who were murdered. So his armed robbers leaked the name of Senate President to robbery. Is the federal government or the APC to be blamed? As reporters, you know that when armed robbery suspects, in this case, it was armed robbery and mass murder. I understand between 31 and 35 persons were killed in that robbery operations. A crime that led to the killings of 35 persons cannot be dismissed by wave of hand. And in any jurisdiction, when your name is linked to such heinous crime, people don't clap for you. It is the duty of the police or of security agencies to investigate the allegation to establish whether or not they are valid or invalid, and the extent to which you are implicated. So if it was linked to armed robbery, that cannot be an offense caused by the All Progressive Congress or of the government. And he hasn't denied knowing those people. The best defense I heard, the one that was published, was that, and the armed robbers themselves also agreed that he didn't ask them to use the weapon for armed robbery. But whether he asked them to do so or not, the point I'm making is that it is the armed robbers, not the APC nor the federal government, that linked him with armed robbery. Then lastly, in support of my thesis that the Senate President, Senator Bukola Saraki, has never acted with the Nigerian national interest in view, my final submission is the way in which he adjourned the Senate about 2 weeks ago. The Senate calendar is not a secret to the presiding officer of the Senate. The Senate calendar that was known was that the Senate was going to adjourn on a Thursday. By Tuesday morning or Monday night, Senator Saraki used his guest house, write out name of senators with provisions paid for signatories for senators to decamp to the PDP from the APC. Happily, some of the senators present refused to sign. And that is what frustrated his calculation that by the time he was done, he was going to turn APC into a minority party in the Senate. For careful observers, is it a coincidence that as the Senate President was reading defections from the Senate, his counterpart in the House of Representatives was also simultaneously reading the names of those who have defected? So there is a coordination for defection day. But happily, the preemptive step we have taken to address those with genuine grievances frustrated their numbers, so that from 36, he couldn't get more than 14 senators to the camp, including one that subsequently revised his decision when he overcome the manipulations and the way in which he plays on their affairs, to get them to resign from their political party. Now, this was on a Tuesday. The calendar of the Senate, the provision was that they were going to adjourn on a Thursday. And so between Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, the Senate was expected. This I can confirm, or I confirm from the Senate leader, that they were to discuss, among other things, the supplementary budget for INEC, and realizing that INEC requirements are not equipment you will buy from the shelf. You have to order them and make allowance for the manufacturers to manufacture them. You don't buy them the way you buy a pack of cigarettes from the shelf. And so time is of the essence. However, Senator Saraki, or the Senate, ordered Saraki's directive adjourned without considering the matter that were before it, including the budget for INEC. Now, if Senator Saraki adjourned the Senate ahead of schedule to resume at the eve towards the end of nominations, can that act be said to coincide with the national interest. If you decide to frustrate the INEC by denying it the funding that it requires, can you be said to be a defender of democracy? If INEC don't get their funds and therefore are unable to conduct a credible election, will that not lead to further serious consequences for our democratic process and our democratic environment? So again, I submit that Saraki's deliberate action were calculated to undermine democracy, as if he has another safety place to fly to if democracy collapses. But those who struggle for democracy did not do it to have it run at the mercy of a Senate president whose interest clearly is at variance with national interest. Also pending before the Senate was a request by Mr. President for viament. Recall that I had earlier spoken to the distortions in the budget. And to correct some of those distortions, the President decided to ask for viament. Senator Saraki had joined the Senate without considering those viament. Number three, the loans, the budget of 2018, a substantial part of it meant for capital projects, critical infrastructural projects, were supposed to be sourced by way of loans. And under the Nigeria Constitution, you can't borrow you can't borrow from foreign countries, foreign loans, without the express endorsement of the Senate and the House of Rep. While these loans were pending, and without those loans, the budget cannot be implemented, particularly the infrastructural component of the budget cannot be implemented. Senator Saraki, putting his personal interest and the safety of his office over and above national interest, choose to adjourn the Senate ahead of schedule and leave these huge, serious national issues unattended. So for an officer that behaves like that, how can he possibly argue that everything he did was not about himself? Everything and anything that Senate President had done as Senate President has never been informed by the national interest as we understand it. And all the allegations about the lack of transparency in the affairs or emolument or whatever it is of the Senate are taking place under his watch. I'm sure you have all written and analyzed on electronic media, tried to demystify what is it that these people earn. You have an arm that is completely unaccountable. That is the way the Senate President had presided. And I submit that these actions do not coincide with national interest. Therefore, his attempt to use the incident at the National Assembly to portray himself as the conscience of the nation is to insult our collective intelligence as a people. And I thought that he must not be allowed to get away with that distortion. Now, lastly, but this is not at the heart of the basis of this press conference, is the futile attempt he has made, is an unsubstantiated allegation to the effect that the event of last, was it Wednesday or Tuesday? That it was an attempt to carry out an illegal impeachment. How can a presiding officer arrive at such a conclusion that there was a plan to carry out an illegal impeachment? Until an action takes place, how can you determine the status? If impeachment by itself is unlawful, the act of impeachment, if it is unlawful, then you can probably understand where he's coming from. But the truth is, it is lawful to impeach anyone, including the President of the Senate, including the Deputy President of the Senate, if the number required to do so is present. So he cannot preempt that. And, you know, as they say, you don't have to be a pathological liar to understand this generally shared wisdom that once you start with one lie, you will need series of lies to support that one lie. I don't want to use the word lie to characterize the actions or the statement of the Senate President, but let us look at the facts. From their own statement, they said they were aware that the House, that the Senate President was going to be illegally impeached. And therefore, they mobilized thugs, they mobilized their journalists, cameramen and videos to the Senate building. They had told the world that they have adjourned till 25th of September. Meanwhile, about 50 PDP senators were in the Senate. And for effect, they imported hundreds of thugs that molested one or two of our members that they cited in the premises of the Senate. And in order to give the lie, to expose the lie, I ask you as as defenders of democracy, did you find any APC senator in the Senate? So if APC senators were not in the Senate, and it is PDP senators that were in the Senate, what is the basis of the false claim that there was an attempt to carry out an illegal impeachment? In any case, Saraki is not going to be the first Senate President to be impeached, and I doubt if he's going to be the last. But definitely, he will be impeached according to law and according to democratic norms. The only way Senator Saraki can avoid impeachment is for him to do what is honorable, which again leads to the issue of character. We saw a Senator Akpabio who was the PDP leader in the Senate. Once he made up his mind to leave the PDP, even before announcing his defection, he first wrote to inform the PDP, as a man of honor, please, I hereby resign from this office. So Senator Saraki has demonstrated neither character nor being a man of honor. He cannot, like I told him to his face when the last time we had a meeting, I said, you came to join APC as a senator, and it is on our platform that you became Senate President. So once you made up your mind to leave, the honorable thing to do is to resign as Senate President. Of course, if he does not resign as Senate President, he will be impeached according to law, not by thuggery, not by mob, not by anything that is undemocratic. He cannot sustain a minority rule in the Senate, and that is what is hurting him as we speak. They have 48 or so senators. We have 53 senators. So how can 48 senators preside over 53 senators? Is returning us back to the PDP era, where the PDP held that 16 governors were more than 19 governors. That is the era Saraki is taking us to. And incidentally, he belongs to that club, and to that club he has returned. So we can see directly where he is going. We can see directly where he's going, that he simply can't change his color, not at old age. So let me conclude by saying that when I say the Senate president will be impeached, he will be impeached properly according to law. And the Constitution is clear how a presiding officer can be impeached. And because several impeachments has taken place, both of former Senate presidents and former speakers, we are not about to witness what has never happened before. And so we have enough precedent to fall back on. I have looked at the Nigerian Constitution. It doesn't say that an impeachment, once muted, is by itself illegal. Until it is done, and you looked at how it is done, you can't arrive at a conclusion whether the process was lawful or unlawful. Only a hardened criminal will allege that one is an armed robber, even without seeing him with a stolen good or anybody complaining that his house has been burgled by the person. So how can we be accused of planning an illegal impeachment when the impeachment has not commenced? But if he thinks that by saying that he's going to preempt the All Progressive Congress from having him impeached, he is deceiving himself. I think Saraki's time is over. The way he has manipulated the police of Kwara State, he failed to understand that the Nigerian national project is far more complicated, and it's not at his mercy or the mercy of his own dynasty. Yes, so he will not only be impeached, we will work hard to have him defeated as a senator in his own senatorial zone come 2019 by the people of Kwara State who are fed up with Saraki and who are fed up with Bukola. He got more votes from Kwara Central than Senator Saraki got for himself. So he can't purport or claim that the vote that we won, APC won, in his senatorial zone were because of him. They were in spite of him, which is why his leaving is of no political consequences as far as electoral issues are concerned. And I stand by that. We tried to talk to him, not out of fear. We tried to talk to him out of conviction that as a presiding officer, there are rules of engagement, and we don't want him to get so emotional as to conduct himself in a manner that is offensive to those rules of engagement that presiding officers everywhere in the world are expected to observe. I think I am done, ladies and gentlemen. Just to summarize by saying that the Senate President has never put Nigerian national interest first. The Senate President has never put his party interest first. The Senate President, at all times, since he became the Senate President, has always, from day one, put his personal interest over and above any other consideration, whether national or party. Thank you very much.
Welcome to First View Luxury Hotel. At First View Luxury Hotel, we offer excellent service. Our rooms have all the necessary facilities to make your stay comfortable and memorable. You will also have access to internet service, breakfast, 24-hour power supply, full air condition, free international calls, free tire pumping service, and free car battery charge. So what are you waiting for? Quickly visit First View Luxury Hotel. We are located at #1 Adelino Bamishile off Raji Rasaki Road, First Estate, Amuwo, Odofin Start, Lagos. For more information or reservation, please call us on 08075787135 or 08099900601. You can also take advantage of our online ongoing promo at www.firstviewhotel.com to make your reservation and payment for your favorite room, which attracts a discount rate. Please note, rooms are reserved based on first come, first serve. First View Luxury Hotel. Experience the home of comfort. They come.